People hate when you stop playing the role they gave you, because the moment you step out of the box they built for you, you remind them that they never had power over you in the first place. And that shakes people. It exposes what they tried to hide behind their expectations. It exposes the truth. You were never meant to stay small so they could feel comfortable. See, a lot of folks don't fear your failure, they fear your awakening. They fear the day you realize you were operating below your own potential just to keep the peace. They fear the moment you stop asking for permission and start moving with purpose. Because when you break out of the version of you they created, they gotta confront why they never elevated themselves. People get used to the old you, the quiet you, the agreeable you, the one who made excuses, the one who said yes when your spirit was screaming no. And the day you rise, the day you reclaim your time and your energy, the day you say, I'm not playing that part anymore, that's the day they start calling you different, distant, selfish, but really, you just stop betraying yourself. Growth feels like disrespect to those who only respected you when you were beneath them. But listen, your life ain't a script they get to write. It ain't a role they get to cast. It's a marathon, and you're supposed to evolve from level to level. That means some people will fall off. That means some rooms won't fit you anymore. That means some conversations won't feed you anymore. And that's not ego. That's alignment. When you stop performing for people, you start performing for your purpose. And purpose don't need validation. Purpose don't need applause. Purpose don't care who stays or who leaves. Purpose asks you one thing. Are you willing to become who you were created to be, even if nobody recognizes you anymore? You gotta understand, becoming a new version of yourself requires the death of the old one. And people mourn the version of you that served their comfort, not your calling. They miss the old you because it benefited them. But the real you, the elevated you, the disciplined you, the self-respecting you, that version is not here to make everybody else feel secure. That version is here to win. And winning demands sacrifice. Winning demands boundaries. Winning demands silence when you used to overshare. Winning demands movement when you used to hesitate. Winning demands you stop pretending to be the person they preferred and start stepping into the person you've always been. Don't let their discomfort become your guilt. Don't let their confusion become your hesitation. Don't let their fear become your ceiling. Because the truth is, anybody who only supported you when you were small was never supporting you. They were supporting the limits they put on you. Break the role. Rewrite the script. Walk away from the version of yourself that played for survival and step into the one that plays for legacy. It's your life, your journey, your evolution, and the marathon continues. People fear your growth because it forces them to confront their own limitations. And this is something you start to notice the moment you rise above the version of yourself they were comfortable with. Growth is not just change, it's revelation. It reveals the truth of who you are, but it also reveals the truth of who they are. And most people are not ready to face that. When you begin to elevate, when your mindset shifts, when you start demanding more from life and from yourself, it puts pressure on everyone around you to either rise with you or fall back. And that's a choice many people don't want to make. It's easier for them if you stay the same, because your old habits didn't challenge them. Your old insecurities didn't intimidate them. Your old dreams didn't make them uncomfortable. But the moment you outgrow the box they built for you, the moment you stop operating from the identity they assigned you, they start to feel exposed in their stagnation. People fear your growth because it interrupts their narrative. They created a certain image of you, maybe the quiet one, the unsure one, the one who couldn't see beyond the boundaries placed around you. They liked you better when you doubted yourself because your doubt made their comfort feel justified. They liked you better when you hesitated because your hesitation excused their lack of motion. They liked you better when you kept your dreams small because your smallness made their comfort zone feel acceptable. But the moment you start thinking bigger, the moment you develop discipline, the moment you start taking actions that align with purpose instead of approval, it forces them to ask themselves why they never try harder, why they never believed in more, why they never pushed past the limits they settled for. And instead of facing that, instead of admitting they chose comfort over growth, they try to pull you back into the role that maintains their illusion of balance. People fear your growth because growth is a mirror, and mirrors make people confront the parts of themselves they avoid. When you start improving, it shows them what improving looks like. When you start healing, it shows them what healing requires. When you start dreaming audaciously, it shows them what playing safe has cost them. Not everyone is ready to see their reflection. Not everyone is ready to admit they could have been more, done more, lived more, if they hadn't chosen fear over evolution. So instead of clapping for you, they distanced themselves. Instead of encouraging you, they criticize. Instead of supporting the shift, they question your motives. It's not that you've become less, it's that your growth highlights what they refuse to grow into. People fear your growth because it changes the dynamic. When you rise, you change the emotional, mental, and spiritual balance of the relationships around you. Someone who once felt superior may suddenly feel insecure. Someone who once relied on your weaknesses may no longer find them to lean on. Someone who once found comfort in your struggle may no longer feel validated by comparison. Growth rearranges the hierarchy that existed in their minds. It breaks the unspoken agreements built on you staying small. And when you break those agreements, even silently, some people take it as betrayal. But the truth is, you're not betraying them, you're just finally choosing yourself. People fear your growth because it separates you from environments that can't sustain your evolution. The conversations change. The priorities shift. The late nights of overthinking become early mornings of discipline. The excuses you once made turn into decisions you stand on firmly. The circles that once entertained you begin to drain you. And the spaces that once felt familiar start to feel limiting. Growth alters your atmosphere, and people who depended on your old atmosphere feel threatened by your new one. They fear losing access, losing influence, losing the version of you that played by rules that didn't serve you. And rather than growing with you, they cling to the narrative that kept you manageable. People fear your growth because deep down, they knew who you were capable of becoming long before you believed it yourself. They saw the potential you carried, the fire in your spirit, the strength in your silence. And instead of motivating themselves through your example, they hoped you would never awaken to your own power. They hoped you would stay humble in a way that benefited them, stay doubtful in a way that kept you seeking their approval, stay limited in a way that kept you accessible. But once you grow past that, once you realize that your journey requires expansion, boundaries, and self-belief, you step into a version of yourself that no one can control. And that kind of freedom frightens people whose own fears have held them hostage for years. People fear your growth because your elevation disrupts the roles they assigned you, the expectations they placed on you, and the comfort they built around your old identity. But your growth isn't about them. It's about the calling that keeps pushing at your soul. It's about the purpose that refuses to let you settle. It's about the destiny that requires you to evolve beyond the limits of anyone else's imagination. When you stop playing the role others gave you, you start aligning with your true purpose. And that moment becomes the turning point of your entire life. There's a shift inside you that's hard to explain, but impossible to ignore. It's like waking up one day and realizing the script you've been following was never written for your growth, only for your compliance. You begin to see how much of your identity was shaped by expectations that weren't yours, by opinions that had nothing to do with your destiny, by people who benefited from you staying predictable, quiet, or convenient. And when you pull away from that version of yourself, not out of rebellion, but out of revelation, everything begins to change. You start understanding that purpose doesn't fit into the roles other people design. Purpose isn't something someone else hands you. It's something you uncover, step by step, as you strip away everything that doesn't belong to your soul. And the moment you stop performing for the world, you begin performing for the calling that's been whispering to you for years. You start making choices based on conviction instead of approval. You start moving with intention instead of hesitation. You stop living on the surface and begin operating from a deeper place, a place where your actions aren't driven by fear, but by clarity. And that clarity starts rearranging everything in your life. When you step out of the role they gave you, you start seeing the difference between their comfort and your mission. You recognize that some people liked you better when you needed their validation because it made them feel relevant. Some liked you better when you played small because it made them feel bigger. Some liked you better when you followed their advice blindly because it gave them a sense of control. But when you break that pattern, when you start thinking for yourself, making decisions for yourself, walking your own path without asking for permission, you become a mirror that forces them to see who they are without the power they held over you. Alignment with purpose also brings a new kind of silence, not a silence of confusion, but a silence of strength. You stop explaining yourself. You stop trying to convince people to understand. You stop apologizing for growing. Instead, you allow your actions to speak, your discipline to speak, your transformation to speak. And even if people don't understand a new version of you, you start realizing they were never supposed to. Your purpose was never meant to be comprehended by those who only knew the version of you that fit their storyline. As you align with your purpose, you'll notice your environment shift. The conversations that once entertained you begin to feel empty. The habits that once distracted you start to feel draining. The relationships that depended on your old patterns start to feel misaligned. You begin to crave depth instead of noise, progress instead of approval, peace instead of attention. And while that shift may feel lonely at times, it's the kind of loneliness that refines you. It teaches you to rely on your own voice, your own vision, your own intuition. It teaches you that purpose requires solitude, discipline, and the courage to walk paths others won't understand until much later. When you stop playing the role they gave you, you start recognizing the power of boundaries. You become protective of your energy. You become selective with your time. You become intentional with your circle. You stop giving access to people who only show up for the version of you that served them. You stop sacrificing your peace to maintain connections that no longer align with your evolution. And though some may call it changing, it's not change, it's clarity. Clarity about who you are, who you're becoming, and what your life is meant to contribute. Purpose begins to unfold, not all at once, but piece by piece. You start noticing opportunities that match your calling. You start attracting people who respect your growth. You start stepping into rooms that require confidence you didn't know you had. You start making decisions that reflect your vision rather than your fears. And with every step, you get closer to the person you always knew you could be. The person who was hidden beneath years of expectations, noise, and self-doubt. When you stop playing the role others gave you, you stop living in reaction and start living in intention. You stop being shaped by the world outside and start being guided by the world within. And even though the journey demands courage, sacrifice, and a willingness to outgrow what no longer serves you, the alignment you feel, that deep, unmistakable sense of purpose, makes every step worth it. The elevated version of you won't be accepted by everyone, but it's the only version built for your destiny. And accepting that truth becomes one of the most defining moments of your journey. When you rise into the person you were always meant to be, you naturally disrupt the expectations, assumptions, and illusions people created about you. Elevation exposes the gap between who you were and who you're becoming. And not everyone is willing to cross that gap with you. Some people wanted you to grow, but only to a level that didn't surpass them. Some wanted you to improve, but only in ways that still benefited them. Some wanted you to succeed, but never in a way that forced them to confront their own stagnation. So when you step into that elevated version of yourself, when your mindset sharpens, your discipline strengthens, your vision widens, it challenges the comfort zones of those around you in ways they're not prepared to handle. As you elevate, you begin to carry yourself differently. Your standards rise, your conversations shift, your priorities evolve. You stop entertaining chaos, and that alone removes many people from your path. You stop entertaining bare minimum energy, and suddenly you're labeled difficult or demanding. You stop engaging in gossip, negativity, or small thinking, and you're called distant. What they don't understand is that elevation isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's the realization that you can't step into your destiny while holding on to habits, people, and environments that belong to your old level. And anyone who benefits from your past patterns will always resist your new ones. The elevated version of you walks with purpose, and purpose has a weight to it, a responsibility, a focus. It doesn't have time for distractions disguised as friendships. It doesn't have space for relationships built on convenience rather than growth. It doesn't tolerate cycles that pull you backward when your soul is trying to move forward. Stepping into your higher self requires the courage to release what no longer matches the vibration of where you're going. And the truth is, some people were only connected to you because of who you used to be, not who you're becoming. There will be moments when this separation feels heavy, when the loneliness of growth makes you question whether the journey is worth it. But that loneliness isn't punishment, it's preparation. It's carving out space for the people who are meant to walk with you at your next level. It's clearing out distractions so your vision can expand. It's removing noise so you can finally hear your purpose clearly. Destiny requires room. It requires focus. It requires the version of you that isn't afraid to walk alone for a season so you can walk in alignment for a lifetime. The elevated version of you thinks differently, moves differently, chooses differently. You are no longer driven by the need to be understood. You are driven by the need to fulfill what you were created for. And the people who are meant for you, the ones aligned with your path, will not be intimidated by your light. They will not shrink in the presence of your growth. They will not resent your evolution. They will rise with you, support you, and challenge you to become even more. Not everyone will celebrate the elevated version of you, but that version was never meant for everyone. It was meant for the destiny that has been calling your name long before you believed you were worthy of answering it.